I am very vulnerable. And I think that I am purposefully and comfortably vulnerable in spaces where I think that people can benefit. Like I have no problem telling people that I'm taking drugs all the
Yeah.
time. I have no problem doing that. And I'm always astounded by how much people come into my DMs and feel so much shame for the medications that they're on. Anything that you are comfortable with and confident in that will help other people, I think is an easy green light when it comes to sharing vulnerably.
Welcome to Anchor Change, where we help you panic responsibly in a chaotic world. I'm Katie Harbath. I've navigated impossible trade-offs in tech, politics, and my personal life for decades. I know that can be lonely. As a Midwesterner who spent 20 years in Silicon Valley and DC, it's taken me a while to figure it out. I still am. One thing that helps me is hearing the stories of other people forging their own paths. Because in a world of complexity, you don't have to navigate it alone. Welcome to Anchor Change. Hey everyone, today we have Suzy Dean. Now, I got to know Suzy through Instagram. As many of you know, I have gotten into crystals and essential oils and some astrology and tarot and all that stuff. Call it midlife crisis, call it what you want, but it helps me. And I think it was Meadows Crystals tagged Suzy in an Instagram post at some point in time, and I started following her. And later on, we're going to have Rachel from Wild Alabaster, who I found through Suzy, I think. But this is what I love a little bit about Instagram is you can find all of these communities and these amazing women who are doing really cool things with their lives. And the reason I wanted to have Suzy on is she has nothing to do with tech and politics, but she is a teacher turned content creator. She had to pivot during COVID. She found what worked for her. We talk about the role of vulnerability, about creating content, about the challenges of that, about trying to think about what do you share online? What do you not share online? What does a career look like when you're just kind of trying to figure it out and you don't know what it's going to look like, but your gut says it's the right way to go? And I wanted to provide this different perspective as many people are not only trying to navigate their careers and lives, but many of that is talking about how do we think about this publicly? How do I think about talking publicly about what it is that I do? And so I thought that Suzy's story would provide a different way for people to think about how they might think about their careers, about being vulnerable, about pivoting in your career, and what might look next. So I hope you enjoy. So I want to jump in right away because you made a dramatic pivot from teaching into becoming a full-time content creator, spiritual guide. I wasn't even sure sort of how to describe you, which is fantastic. But what was the moment when you knew teaching wasn't your path anymore?
So let me just say, I loved teaching for the 95% of the time that I was teaching. I fell into teaching completely on accident. I accidentally fell in love with it. I was an awesome teacher. And it was a time when I was like leaving work every day, like feeling fulfilled and finally understanding, oh, this is what people say. Like, it's possible to love your job and then have it energize you. And what happened was I got pregnant, yay. And it was after 2020. And there's a lot to say about that in education and how it brought our students back because there was so much confusion with everything and the way that they were behaving in the classroom like they weren't used to, and the catching up academically was really hard. That's a conversation for another time. But I came back from Christmas break pregnant. I was just coming off of a miscarriage, so I was very anxious about this pregnancy. Because I was pregnant, I couldn't be on my anxiety medications, and I was teaching high school seniors, and they were considered the lowest 25% of the school. So the students that were at most at risk of not graduating, of going into trades, which is where my passion lie, but there were struggles there too. So with the anxiety about being pregnant, the lack of medication to dull that anxiety, and the fact that I was dealing with kids that were not listening to me on their phones, didn't really care. It was like walking back into the classroom without the glasses of my Klonopin. It was like, oh my God, I'm disrespected every hour of the day, every day of the week. And there's no other job where this happens to people. There can't be. And I knew there were three things that solidified my decision. One, that anxiety. It was through the roof. It was taking away from my relationship with my family. It was taking over my whole life. Two was when I was called into an administrator's office and essentially told, you have too many students failing and you need to pass them to graduate. Even though they hadn't turned things in, I was being asked to inflate grades, which went against all my values. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I really am a babysitter, like they say about teachers. And I knew that I would not be able to have the emotional capacity to care for a child of my own and care for 120, 130 students also. And luckily, I was in a position where it would be really scary, but I could eventually quit and get a part-time job. And that was a decision my husband and I made together. We finished out the school year and then I got a part-time job, which is my bridge job until we did what I do now.
Yeah. So what was the bridge job? Like, how did you come about that?
Dude, total manifestation. Was like, Robbie, I don't know what my next job's going to be, but I know that something's going to come. I was so full body confident. And
Isn't that such a great feeling? Hang on, I want to pause there for a second because I think that this is something that I only recently have started to really pay attention to, of like, your body tells you when something is the right next move or not. And you might not be able to see the path, but there's something in you that's just like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And it sounds like that's what you were sort of feeling.
yeah. And this happened twice in my story. So the first time was I had no idea what my new job was going to look like, but I knew I needed to get one. But I wasn't applying for any jobs. I wasn't like taking any action. And I was at a coffee shop one day on a walk with my son, newborn, still on maternity leave. And it started raining. Popped into a coffee shop, started talking to the woman in front of me. And she said, what do you do for work now that you have a baby? Like, are you still working? I said, actually, I'm sending in my resignation letter to teaching in 2 weeks. And she said, oh, that's so wonderful because I have a job opening and we love hiring mothers and we love hiring teachers, especially. And we're super flexible, super family oriented. It was all aligned. It was working from home. It was flexible hours. It was take time off when you need. Family comes first. And it fell in my lap. And that was the cushion I needed and the income that I needed to carry me until we figured out what was going to be next. So the job was, I was writing job descriptions for a boutique HR consulting firm that worked specifically with larger government organizations. So we were like revamping the compensation plans and the job descriptions and such for like city governments.
Okay. Yeah. But isn't it, it's kind of crazy how like you're looking for something and then you're just in line and someone's like, I happen to. I've actually hired people that way too. I was having drinks with somebody that I hired on my team and I was like, so what are you looking to do? And he tells me a little bit about what it is. And I take a long drink of my beer and I'm like, actually, I have a job opening that kind of fits all those things. And, you know, it's just magical how, to your point, manifestation and the universe sort of sending it your way.
Always holding you. And it's funny, like the vibes were right. Sometimes you don't need a resume. You just need the vibes from someone and you're like, I think you might fit exactly what I'm looking for.
So then now walk us into content creator, young living, all of that. I don't know which came first, actually.
Okay. So yeah, this is where things get weird. So the semester before I got pregnant and had the whole shit show for my spring semester and was like not happy. I went viral on TikTok multiple times. And I had a teacher Instagram that I wanted to use in 2020 just to figure out like, how are we doing lessons on Zoom? How are we innovating just to get ideas like Pinterest? And I started posting on Instagram about grammar lessons. I called them Grammar Lessons with Miss Dean. I was a high school senior English teacher. I had a lot of English. I had a lot of pet peeves. And I just one day decided to cross post one of my Instagram posts to TikTok, which was me ranting about how every time I tell someone I'm a high school senior teacher, they say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That must be so hard. But actually, it's so fulfilling because they're like, it's such an opportunity to mold them and hold their hand as they're about to go into the real world. And they're like so funny, and they've been in school long enough to feel comfortable with their friends and comfortable with their teachers. So we like laugh and we banter, and also like I'm young and bouncy, and they love that. And I have stuffed animals in my classroom, and I have crystals in my classroom, and I have them color when they're done with their tests. And that video went viral on TikTok, and I got like 20,000 followers. And then I continued posting teacher content, which was either how I ran my classroom, tips for writing a good essay, how I incorporate social emotional learning in my classroom. I started later doing skits about the funny stuff that happened in my classroom. I would put my camera on my desk facing me and catch all the audio of the seniors and the nonsense that went on in my classroom, and people loved it. And I would do seating chart videos, and the strategy that I put into the seating charts with IEPs and FIREs, and these people are dating, and these people just broke up, and these people hate each other, these people are best friends, but these two people, they might talk a lot, but they actually help each other with their work. So how are we going to make this work? And also I had an overpopulated, and people loved it. I was featured in BuzzFeed. I had a couple of articles written. It was wild.
And so this is like
So
2020 still, 2021?
2020, 2021.
So we're still
So then,
COVID era.
yes. So I got a couple of like brand deals, if you can call them that. And then I was like, okay, this can be something. I started making merch, but now I'm pregnant. So I was able to integrate some pregnancy content, but I'm like, I'm not going back to the classroom. And my whole like Instagram, TikTok was Miss Dean loves you. So I'm like, how am I going to transfer these people? And it was really hard. And there was a growing pains period where I was trying to integrate more pregnancy stuff with the plan of doing motherhood stuff and then lifestyle stuff, and then hopefully making my audience interested in me as a person and my life. And everything dipped, everything dropped. I was trying new things. And then one day I was in my apartment and I posted my very first woo woo bestie video, which was your woo woo bestie comes to visit your new home. Because I have been very spiritually inclined, very woo, quote, woo woo. I started my spiritual journey in 2017. I was always the outcast in my friend group because I was the woo woo one, and they called me the she's the woo woo one. So I was making fun of myself and all the things that I've done with my friends, cleansing their home, blowing cinnamon in the doorway, giving them crystals that they might need for what they're going through. And that went viral. And
is this on TikTok or Instagram?
that went viral on Instagram, I think.
Okay.
Because at that point I was like, people on TikTok were getting mean to me, and I liked Instagram better. I wanted to build more there. And so then I was like, okay, I've learned my lesson from my teacher days. I want to latch onto this quick. So I created a Woo Woo Bestie Facebook group. I continued creating the Woo Woo Bestie persona, like Woo Woo Bestie comes over when you've just had a baby. Woo Woo Bestie comes over after a breakup. Here are the crystals that you need for this. Here are the oils that you need for this. These are the herbs that you would use for such and such. Here's how you celebrate the autumnal equinox. And I really leaned in, and I completely grew from there. And that was such a blessing, because obviously that was most aligned with my personality and my authentic self. I didn't have to worry about motherhood lifestyle stuff. And so that's where the content creation really exploded.
Now, were you monetizing that at the time, or were you still kind of doing your part-time job while you were doing this?
So the Young Living part actually is also a whole other story, but I think people have a misconception, at least in my experience, of making money on social media. Cause like TikTok and Instagram, like they'll pay you sometimes, but it's not a lot. Your Instagram and your TikTok are vehicles for brand partnerships, UCG content, and such. So at this time, I was just having fun with it and doing my part-time job still, and getting like free stuff. Like I was like asking for free stuff. I didn't really care about monetizing anything. But also, there came a point while I was doing that part-time job that Young Living became such a strong source and a reliable source of income that I was like, this is my second full body answer. I was like, I know that if I leave this HR part-time position and am able to dedicate all of my time to Young Living and content creation and later my podcast, I know that this is going to be something big. And it worked out really well because I had been using essential oils for years and years and using them in my spiritual practice. And now I became the woo woo bestie that people recognized. And that came together so seamlessly. I could show you all the herbs that you could use, the crystals that you could use, the meditations that you could use, and the oils that you could use to walk you through your woo woo journey. So I had a full body yes. I quit my HR job, went all in on Young Living and all in on content creation. Today, I I had and started and ended a podcast, which we might talk about. I have my Young Living, I have my content creation. What else am I doing? Oh, I have my website
I was
now.
going to
And
say you have your website and your newsletter, but we're going to get to all that because I
okay,
want to. A lot of people might not know what Young Living is. I didn't until I got connected to you and stuff like that. So I want to know how you found Young Living, a little bit of your essential oil journey, because what I'm trying to piece together for folks, as many people are trying to think about their next careers or their next moves and everything else like that, is that these can come from, you can have a lot of different things that are kind of in your orbit
Mhm.
that might take a while to like figure out what you need to integrate and how that could look like. So yeah, explain what Young Living is and sort of how you got into that orbit.
Okay. So I started using essential oils, not Young Living. Young Living does more than essential oils, but we'll get into that. I started using essential oils that I got from like Whole Foods or like local metaphysical stores when I started my spiritual journey, which happened right after I graduated from college. And I was diffusing sandalwood on the full moon, and I was using frankincense to like deepen my meditations, and I was doing lavender to go to sleep. You know, all of your basic stuff. Patchouli in the tub in the dark by candlelight. And I had been dating my boyfriend, now husband, and I knew that his family had used Young Living growing up, oils to like help with sicknesses and help clean up their home and clean up their toxins. But of course, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm like, ew, in MLM, I'm not dealing with that. Those hey girl messages, like most of the people listening probably right now are like, I have had the ear yucky MLM pushy, ew, annoying
Explain what MLM
experience.
is for people who might not know.
Multi-level marketing, social selling, network marketing.
So like my mom did Avon for a little bit, like, right? Like it's like stuff like that, or like the
Yes.
Tupperware clubs or Pampered Chef
Yes.
is another one. And like
Yes.
for people kind of wondering what this is. Yeah.
Commonly confused for pyramid schemes, which they are not. I promise pyramid schemes are illegal from the 80s. I'm not like the typical, and a lot of us aren't like the typical annoying like MLM
No,
people.
you found a good balance between it all,
Thank you.
but I can totally understand from the beginning, you're sort of like, ew, I don't want to do
Oh
that.
yeah.
Like people are good. I'm going to ruin all this trust and everything that I've built up with people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't even want to try them. I was like, okay, that's like so cool that your family does that, but they're out of my price range. And I know that they're better quality oils, but they're out of my price range. And I was like, like maybe I'll buy from an MLM, but the last thing I want is someone recruiting me into their business and like making me buy stuff that I don't want to buy. But I was approached by someone who a couple years in sold Young Living, and at that point I had a teacher salary, which isn't much, but was more than I had before. And I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to make the decision to swap out these oils that are affordable, but I know are not the best quality, and switch them in for trying Young Living. And I did. And I loved them. And I used them religiously. And I bought them monthly starting in 2021. And I have never missed a month since then. But selling them, I'd rather stick needles in my eyeballs. Okay. I did not want to be that MLM girl. And one day, like 2 or 3 years later, I posted on my social media story, like a diffuser blend that I was using for a specific purpose, a full moon, a new moon, a grounding ritual I was doing. People were interested. I was so scared. I was so scared to show the Young Living oils because I
Have
was
I
like,
ever told you what I call this? I call this
no.
the things we whisper, where You find where like you say something and then people will be like, oh, I'm interested, or I do that too. But they're like worried about, because they want that opening to talk about it so that people don't think you're weird or something like that. And like, that's partially why I wanted to have folks like you and others on this podcast too, of like, because so many people I talk to are interested in this, but they're like nervous to talk about it out loud.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And anytime someone had brought it up to me before, I was like, oh my God, let me flip through this book. Let me learn about these plants. And so I posted about it, so scared. I was like, they're going to see this Young Living thing. They're going to think I'm trying to sell them shit. And all of the trauma response is going to come. And people were actually interested in it. And they were like, you use oils? I want to use oils. I want to use oils for my spirituality. I had no idea how I could do that. What do you recommend? And I was like, oh my God, people actually care. What do I do from here? And I figured it out, and I had conversations, and I did a lot of back end research, and I tailored plans for people, and it blew up. So, what Young Living is, to get back to that question, is Young Living is an essential oils company, the leading essential oils company in the industry. And they don't just sell essential oils, which are oils extracted from plants with the healing and the healing constituents that plants naturally give us through herbalism, herbal medicine, etc., distilled into a concentrated form that you can use for your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, and your spiritual health. And I am so appreciative of it because it helps me align my life and my practices more with nature, which I try to do every day. But they also have cleaning line that's plant powered that I feel safe using around my child. They have supplements that are clean and wonderful and work on a cellular level to heal your body in different ways, or to address, I have to be compliant here, address issues you may be dealing with
Yeah, we are not
in
doctors
whatever.
in
I'm
this,
not a
but yeah.
doctor. But what really sold me on this company, as opposed to all other companies, is one, they regeneratively farm all of the plants that they use. And if you don't know what regenerative farming is, in short, it is a way of farming that is not depleting our soil, which is a problem America has, which is why we can get the best organic food at like Whole Foods and still not get as much nutritional value from it as we would think, because our soil is depleted, and it gives back to the earth and gives back to the ecosystem. It doesn't take, it replenishes. And I really love that stewardship for the earth. They are so strict with their oils, in that if an oil does not meet all of the constituents and chemical constituents for your healing at certain percentages for that specific plant, they don't sell it, and they put it back into the irrigation system in their farms to be reused and recycled. It's all organic, it's all compost, here, let me.
You're all good. I mean, I think that and I see this a lot on their website, right? Like they're just very thoughtful and intentional in terms of how they're trying to grow this stuff, extract it to make sure that like it's not only the highest quality, but they're thinking about the environmental impact and all that other stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, and they're making sure that the plants that we're using are grown in their native environments. They're using harvesting practices, some of which are hand harvested. They're using harvesting practices according to the specific plant. They are using compost, uh, like combinations according to that specific plant. They are distilling according to that specific plant in the specific amount of time that it needs. And the most important thing is their transparency that I love, which is anyone, a customer or not, can visit any of their farms, can participate in farming, or can participate in harvesting, can participate in planting, can talk to the farmers, can talk to the chemists. You can watch oils be distilled. There's nothing hidden from you. And that integrity and the stewardship of the earth and the intentionality they have, and then the passion they have for not cutting corners, but for really maintaining the integrity of the plant to give to people as tools for their health, just blew me away.
So
And I,
you
yeah.
are content creating, Young Living, you're trying to mix them together. You continue to do that. I'm curious about your process of creating content. As somebody who is now also trying to create more content, this is a lot harder than what it looks. I mean, I used to go to campaigns and tell them, like, here's how you kind of do it. And I used to do it a long time ago. But when you're the one in front of the camera and you're trying to think about what to do, I'm curious your process on that, because you post a lot throughout the day. And it's kind of cool because I feel like we've gotten to know each other. I've gotten to know you quite well just by following your Instagram account.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, teaching helped me a lot because I had to stand in front of kids that didn't want to be there all day, and I had to be on and engaging while receiving nothing back.
That's actually a really great point.
Which is exactly what I'm doing with social media. I'm staring at a camera, looking at myself, receiving no feedback, but trying to be engaging. And over the years, you have to get out of your comfort zone and you have to just do it and talk to the freaking rectangle sitting on your counter. But now it's come to a point where I don't even think about it, and being vulnerable on camera and just picking up my phone and not thinking twice about it and not rewatching it and just posting it, it's just second nature to me. And when you do that for so long and you step out of your comfort zone so often, what you'll find is that not only will you become more confident in doing that, but when you pick up the phone, your brain already knows like how to get rid of the fluff, how to let your guard down and not think about how other people are perceiving that story, and actually show your authentic personality and your thoughts, which is ultimately what people relate to and which is what people want to follow and buy into. Because when it comes to content and people wanting to follow you, I always tell my friends, like, people want to learn, they want to be validated, or they want to know that they're not alone. And so by being as vulnerable as possible and not thinking twice about it and just, I hate to say, but just being yourself is huge. And that takes a lot of stepping out of your comfort zone. When it comes to like grid posts, it is really hard. It does take a lot. And people don't understand also how long it takes to edit a video. So over the years, what I found is the best tool is if you have I recommend everybody have 3 to 5 content pillars that they focus on. Don't niche down into one thing that will limit you. Once you have those things, I would follow those people in that area for inspiration, but be careful. I have found that my best content has come when I'm not consuming, because then I end up subconsciously copying people. But it has come from not consuming and just like doop-de-doing in my backyard, and an idea pops into my head like, oh my gosh, I do this spiritual practice every day and I don't even think about it, but other people might find it groundbreaking. Or this is an oil that I use all the time. People don't know that it's one of the highest frequency oils in existence. Let me educate on that. Or I'm having a really tough mom moment right now and I'm really fired up about this. So I'm just going to throw on the camera and I'm going to talk. Or there are the more structured posts, like these are the rituals you do on the summer solstice, which take outlining and researching and like some of my scripts. And then those end up being 10 minutes of raw footage that take me like 45 minutes to edit and then post out. And sometimes things flop, and sometimes the video that you just did on a whim just goes viral. You never know. But in terms of my process, I do try to brainstorm like 5 to 7 ideas. Content batch is my best friend, which means I'm changing outfits to make it look like I'm filming this on different days. My room is a mess. Send Robbie and my baby out of the house all day. And I have all this raw footage that I can just lean on throughout the week to just pop on and post. But then there are also the ones that are just spur of the moment, or a trend comes up that I want to hop on before it leaves. And sometimes I'll do those on the fly too. So I do a mix of.
I also like there's things that are consistent, like your morning post about just outside, and what is it? Water before Ningxia for coffee. I can't remember what exactly it is.
Feet in the earth, eyes in the morning sunlight, water before your Ningxia. And then people recognize you for that. The consistency in some of that branding is so important, because so many people have messaged me and shown me pictures of them and their children grounding. And I'm like, wow, look at you, like, remember, you watch. You know what to expect when you pop on my stories. That's awesome.
And I think part of it too is in a world as chaotic as it is today, to have things that you can, even as it's not small, but even as something as simple as that, of that morning post is going to be there quite consistently.
Mhm.
It's just something nice to know that like you can see and you're like, okay, at least that part's right in the world, right? In terms of what you're doing.
Yeah, and if I just may, like, when it comes to content creation, especially today, there can be a lot of pushback on creators for not speaking out on issues that are going on
Oh,
that
I
they're
bet.
passionate about. And that's a really hard line to walk because, on the one hand, you have this platform and you want to advocate, and also you have this platform and you want to be a safe space where people can take a mental break and feel hopeful and maybe giggle or maybe learn something or maybe be distracted, especially if like you're in a home or an environment where the news cycle is on constantly. Having that mental break or your silly little woo woo bestie talking about herbs is what you need to settle and re-regulate your nervous system.
It certainly does for me.
Okay.
It's a nice, like, it's a break of just, oh, it's totally different than what my brain's focusing on,
Oh, that's
throughout the
sweet.
day. And so it's just a nice, like, well, let me go see what these folks are doing on Instagram because I need a little bit of a palate cleanser before I
Good.
go into the next thing. What's been
Perfect.
something that surprised you about creating content almost every single day?
Such a good answer for this.
It's all good. Maybe it'll come back to you.
What is something that surprised me most about content, creating content almost every day? I think it's what I said before, is what I was going to say, that your best content is going to come when you're not watching anyone else's content.
Yeah. I was
And
thinking about that when you said that. I was like, it's a really good tip.
yeah, I had no idea. I mean, obviously, people will think like, oh, I can see all these people in my realm and in my content area, topic area, and they can give me ideas. But what, I mean, nobody, you aren't going to have long term followers and audience and dedicated people and people that want to follow you to begin with if you're just ultimately copying other people, whether that's subconsciously or consciously. And oddly, when you're stepping away from that and you're just like going about your day, you'll find you'll become more aware of your thoughts and you'll become more aware of your routines and things that other people might be interested in that will set off a light bulb in your brain that will be a creative idea that nobody has done before. And like this woo woo bestie character, I think that's part of what it was. It wasn't, I mean, it wasn't really talked about. It at the time, there were like a very spiritual sect of people, and there was very religious, and then there was very this and very that, and then this quirky little girl that talks about being a woo woo bestie who's also like Christian and also loves essential oils and non-tox living, but also takes Klonopin and antidepressants, and also drinks Ningxia, but also shotguns beers and is a mom. Like all of that together has created such unique content
Yeah.
and a unique atmosphere and a unique environment where so many people can feel safe. And that only came from me, and it couldn't have been replicated from someone else. So,
You just called it. There's something I want to jump in here on because you mentioned the woo woo bestie character, and you posted something the other day about reminding people that what you share online may only be about 30 to 40% of who you are. So how do you find that line sort of what you're gonna share out to the public, because you all are very vulnerable. You do
yeah,
share a lot of different stories, but there's obviously you have an entire life outside of what you're also showing us online. How do you find that balance?
it's not hard. And I feel like a lot of people will say, it is hard, but I am very vulnerable. And I think that I am purposefully and comfortably vulnerable in spaces where I think that people can benefit. Like I have no problem telling people that I'm taking drugs all the
Yeah.
time. Prescribed drugs for people that aren't watching. I have no problem doing that, and I'm always astounded by how much people come into my DMs and feel so much shame for the medications that they're on.
I
I
know
have
I feel that way
no
with the weight loss shots that I'm on. Like some people, like I'm trying to share that, and like people are like, "Oh my god, I had so much shame around potentially," and I'm like, "Listen, they help me. They're great. My doctor and I, this was the best thing for me to do it because nothing else really worked. And people are like, oh, just thank you for saying that, because I felt a lot of shame if I had to do that and didn't have the willpower or whatever it might be that they thought they needed to have in order to take care of whatever they need to take care of within themselves.
Anything that you are comfortable with and confident in that will help other people, I think is an easy green light when it comes to sharing vulnerably. I do the same thing with my body image and like how sometimes I skip meals and sometimes most of the time I don't drink water and Ningxia before my coffee. I think I've had 5 shots today and I'm not afraid to admit that. And it's showing people that like you don't have to be perfect. I didn't charge my freaking crystals last night. It was full moon. I'm the woo woo bestie. It's not a big deal. But there are some very personal things that just like feel, it comes back to how it feels in your body. I have no problem telling people that I'm on antidepressants. But when it came to my grandpa's death, I was like, this is way too sacred for me that I'm going through right now, that people don't need to know about the specifics until I feel empowered enough or integrated enough to share it. Or like, there's like family drama that I have to deal with, or childhood trauma, or dynamics between me and my parents that are incredibly difficult and draining, and I don't want to share that because I don't want to smear my family's name, because people take things and then run with it when it's not the full story. So I try to protect other people in my life especially, and then if there's something that I'm actively going through that I just know I need to be with first or keep quiet forever, I feel that in my body. And it ultimately, like, yes, sharing ultimately my grandfather's passing and the memories we had and the trip that we took and his burial was healing for me, but it happened a month and a half after he actually passed. And I know that sharing grief is important for people to also see, but like sharing my family's drama and dynamics, like that's not serving anyone. So,
No.
but I'm dealing with it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And you would never guess. So those are my rules off the
Yeah.
top of my
You can
head
be
for it.
vulnerable, but not have to share everything, which I think is really
Absolutely.
important. So you mentioned your podcast earlier because you did pause your podcast, but you launched a new website. So I'm curious, like, how did you decide to make that pivot and why and sort of how is it going so far?
Dude, I loved my podcast. I loved nothing more than finding people on the internet that I thought were cool as fuck. And am I allowed to
Yeah,
curse?
we're good. Yeah.
I love finding people that were cool as fuck and then get just like that I admired or had been following for a long time, and then sitting and having a conversation on the fly with them and learning about their lives. And it taught me so much and it gave me so much confidence for walking into a situation with somebody that I had never met before. I didn't know if we were going to vibe. It gave me so much confidence for like carrying on a conversation with someone that I had never met before. And I loved it until the day I ended it. I still loved it. What the problem was that editing a 1 hour podcast took me 2.5 hours and I dreaded it every time I had to sit down and do it. I hated it. And I didn't want to outsource it to someone else because it was like my baby. And there were
Yeah.
there were things that I knew that I needed to keep that someone else might not know. So it was taking up a lot of my emotional and energetic time, but I still wanted to share thoughts and feelings and musings with the world. So I decided to stop the podcast and instead launch a newsletter and website and blog where I could still share my heart and what I was going through and my opinions in a way and connect with my audience in a very personal way that that just felt more fulfilling and life giving for me. And it's been going awesome so far. It's exactly what I expected it to be.
Oh, I love that. And by the way, if you ever want to trade newsletter tips, let me know.
I don't fucking know what I'm doing. Do you?
Well, I've had mine for 3.5 years on
I don't know what
Substack.
I'm doing.
So,
Are there
so
tips?
well, I mean, I was going to recommend, first of all, that you might think about going on Substack where like other people can find you and like stuff like that. But that's like that's a whole
Okay.
other story and like
Yeah.
stuff like that. And like people have differing things that they want to do, but always happy to like
Okay.
trade tips and discuss
Okay.
about different things because I
We'll do
know
that.
it's a lot. But do you see yourself doing this for the foreseeable future? Like,
Oh
how do you
God.
think about your career evolution?
People used to always ask me, what's your 5, 10 year plan? I don't know.
I
The
don't know
thing-
what my 6-month plan is, let alone my 5-year plan.
seriously, like I No, I have no idea what the future is going to hold. Like for now, I'm bopping around. I guess my dream would be I'm having so much fun doing what I'm doing right now. If I can continue doing that and continue like building my MLM girl team and talking about young living and talking about the sentience of plants and the magic of plants and using them in your life and mentoring women that want to share it with me, never by any pressure, always by their choice, mentoring them and making new friends and also like sharing content with the world that makes people feel seen and not alone and sharing very vulnerable blog posts on my website and doing so to ultimately hopefully a scale where I can continue to stay at home and maybe move to somewhere where there's land and there's forest and there's birds and maybe like I don't know, can like sit on a deck every morning and have like my own sauna. Like that is my plan. And however that comes to fruition will come to fruition. But right now, my only goal is continue having fun, continue enjoying yourself. And when it's not fun anymore and when it feels like a chore, that's when I know that I need to pivot. And if that happens and what it might look like, I have no idea, but I trust that my body will tell me.
All right, last two questions. First, is there a crystal or essential oil, either or that you recommend most often to newcomers?
Valor is the essential oil that I recommend to everyone. Valor it was my gateway essential oil that I first smelled and I was like, "Oh, this is like nothing I've ever smelled before." And it is made for courage and confidence. Hence the name Valor. It is loosely based in ancient Roman rituals in which 3 days before battle, they would bathe in a cacophony, smattering of herbs and plants in a bath that were believed to have properties to give them courage, confidence, resilience on the battlefield. And those are roughly the plants that are in this blend. And it's a beautiful blend. And so
I
I
love it.
recommend
It's great.
Right. I recommend it for everyone who because it feels like across the board what people ask me about the most is I'm really nervous, I'm really anxious, I get butterflies in my tummy before this. What can I use? And that's always my first option. And I actually kept it in my classroom drawer in a roller with a citrus oil, and I let my kids use it before a test or before a
Oh, that's great.
presentation. I
Yeah.
brought it to their graduation to use. So that's my number one recommendation for
And then how about crystals?
usually kind of boring, but I do love recommending carnelian. That's not boring. I was gonna say selenite, and last minute I decided to do carnelian. I freaking love carnelian or tiger's eye are my two favorites. They always sit on my desk. These are my motivation, badass bitch, courage. I'm gonna rock this. I'm the best magnetic version of myself crystals that I recommend for people. Carnelian and then tiger's eye would be my order, but if you can get them together, that's a dynamic duo you'll love.
Yeah, I'd recommend you can oftentimes get those as bracelets together and stuff like that. And just for people who are watching and wondering, yes, we are wearing the same necklace. Rachel from Wild Alabaster made these, and I saw Suzy was wearing it in her story, and I was like thinking about wearing it for today, and I was like, we're gonna twinsy and do all
And
of it.
yeah, Wild Alabaster is an awesome crystal shop. Rachel does her due diligence with sourcing ethical crystals and pure crystals. So
Yeah,
she's
and
the one.
Meadows Crystals in Utah is another one. And Meadows actually the way that I found you because she tagged you on an Instagram story, and that's how I started following you. And then I think that's how I found Rachel.
Yes,
Actually, it
it is.
was like this whole thing. All right, last question: how can people find you online? How do they follow you?
Oh, yay. Okay, so you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at woowoo, WOOWOO, bestie underscore Suzy, SUZY. And then you can find my website at yourwoowoobestie.com. And then through all of those channels, you can find everything else that I offer.
And I'll link to everything in the show notes. But Suzy, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for keeping me on my toes. This was fun to reminisce and see your face again and see that beautiful crystal sitting behind you on your desk.
Yeah, I'm in love with this citrine. So, all right, I hope you have a good day. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
I really love talking to Suzy. I wanted to bring her on because I wanted to provide that different perspective. She's on the younger side. I think we're always pivoting throughout life, and she's trying to figure out the different ways to navigate that. And I'm just so proud of her and inspired by what she's been able to build. Don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter at anchorchange.substack.com if you want to know a bit more about how I'm continuing to navigate my career, as well as this intersection of tech, politics, and life. Until next time. Welcome to Anchor Change, where we help you panic responsibly in a chaotic world. I'm Katie Harbath. I've navigated impossible trade-offs in tech, politics, and my personal life for decades. I know that can be lonely. As a Midwesterner who spent 20 years in Silicon Valley and DC, it's taken me a while to figure it out. I still am. One thing that helps me is hearing the stories of other people forging their own paths. Because in a world of complexity, you don't have to navigate it alone. Welcome to Anchor Change.